Now, I know this channel is all about real estate, but in general, choosing a career path is a really hard thing to do. If you're just graduating from college or you're just a few years into your career, there can be a lot of pressure to settle down and find something that not only pays the bills and has income upside, but is also something you enjoy and can see yourself doing long term. Now, even though this channel is all about real estate investing careers and real estate financial analysis, I know there are many people who watch these videos or even join our courses or Break Into CRE Academy that are just dipping their toes in the water and trying to decide if a full-time career in commercial real estate is right for them. And if you fall into that category, what I wanted to do today was make a video specifically for those people who don't know if they're totally all in on real estate yet and are still on the fence about a full-time career in CRE. So if you are trying to decide whether you want to set your sights on a real estate investment or brokerage role as the first step in your career, or if you're in the industry right now and trying to decide whether or not you want to stay in the industry long term, this video is going to cover 6 of the biggest pros and cons I've seen in the commercial real estate industry based on my experience and what might matter to you. Hey, this is Justin from breakintocre.com, and if you're new here on this channel, we talk about real estate investing careers and real estate financial analysis. So if you're looking to break into the industry or advance your existing real estate investment career, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos as soon as they're released. So the whole what do you want to do with your life question can seem pretty unfair when you're just starting out in your career, and choosing a long-term profession you have to commit to can feel like trying to look into a crystal ball and having to know exactly what you want to do 10, 15, or 20 years down the road from now can be extremely stressful for anyone, recent college graduate or not. And this is especially hard to answer if you don't actually know what you'd be getting yourself into with the options you're considering, which is the case for many people who maybe only have one short-term internship experience or even no on-the-job experience to base that decision on. So if you're considering a career in real estate and don't have any real estate experience, or you fall into the category of only having an internship or a few years of full-time job experience at a company that you don't think is representative of the rest of the industry, this video is going to break down 3 of the biggest pros and 3 of the biggest cons I've seen in the commercial real estate investment and brokerage space based on my own experience in real estate private equity, brokerage, and lending. So let's jump right into it, starting with the pros. And when people think about real estate, they tend to think about money, and pro number 1 for many people is the income upside that real estate offers. Commercial real estate is an industry where it's not uncommon to see people in their 20s making multiple 6 figures per year, and even more for the rainmakers or entrepreneurs raising third-party equity and cashing in on a few major property sales. As with many other roles in sales or finance, assets with a high dollar amount tend to come with equally high transaction costs, fees, and other forms of income that go towards paying commissions, salaries, and bonuses at CRE investment and brokerage firms. Selling a $30 million property isn't uncommon at the high levels of commercial real estate, and transactions like this often result in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in brokerage commissions, disposition fees for the seller, and acquisition fees and future management fees for the buyer as well. And no matter what side of the table you're sitting on, doing this multiple times per year can get you some big profits, which leads to big paychecks for those people involved with these transactions. Now, aside from the very high income potential in commercial real estate, the second pro I've seen in commercial real estate is how entrepreneurial the industry is in general. So many people get into the real estate space with a goal to go off on their own one day and build their own real estate portfolio, which is very feasible to do. In the traditional startup or tech world, you may need to hire an entire team and raise capital before starting out and even earning any revenue at all. Whereas with real estate, most firms are started with just 1 to 3 partners, raising third-party equity on a deal-by-deal basis and relying on third parties and contractors to do much of the day-to-day management work on the property portfolio. Real estate also has incredibly high financial upside for entrepreneurs specifically, especially when you're dealing with these high dollar amount assets. So we talked about transaction fees being based on deal size, which can be major income drivers for CRE firms with 1 to 3 partners and very little overhead. But the biggest upside is generally on the back end when an entrepreneur takes a portion of the profits earned on a deal over and above their ownership interest based on their equity invested. Now we go into these equity waterfall structures in much more detail in several other videos on this channel that I'll link in the description below. But in basic terms, an entrepreneur who invests $100,000 in a deal and then sells that deal for a profit 3 to 5 years later can often earn back 5 to 10 times their initial investment through promoted interest, which could mean a 7-figure payout just for one single deal. Real estate is also still a relatively fragmented business, meaning that pricing is still much less efficient than other investment options like stocks and bonds. And this means that, especially in the sub $10 million space that many CRE entrepreneurs play in, you're more likely to find profitable off-market real estate deals than heavily discounted publicly traded companies if you were trading paper assets. Now, aside from the entrepreneurial nature of the business, another big upside that people interested in finance really like about real estate is the physical nature of real estate itself. So real estate is a unique investment because it's something you can see, touch, and for most people, understand the operations of much more easily than something like an operating company in an obscure industry with multiple different sources of revenue. Having done this for a while now, I can tell you that working in Excel models and analyzing investment opportunities is much more exciting when you can actually see the investment you're working on through photos or in person, and you can experience the city or area that the property is located in. I've often said on this channel that real estate isn't rocket science, and the physical nature of property just tends to make it more easily understandable than many other areas of high finance, since real estate impacts essentially everyone's lives on a day-to-day basis. Real estate affects the way we live, work, shop, and travel, so many people are naturally drawn to the excitement that certain parts of the industry offer, depending on where their personal interests lie. So at this point, we've covered the main pros. Let's talk about some of the main cons of working in the commercial real estate industry. Now, it is important to note that before we get into this, not everyone will see all of these points as cons, specifically number 1 and 2 on this list, depending on your personality type. But with that said, let's start with con number 1 on this list, which is travel. Now, this might sound appealing at first glance, traveling to new cities, racking up frequent flyer miles, and meeting new people in the process. However, the reality of this is usually a lot more mundane than it sounds on the surface. So for example, if you're in an acquisitions role, you'll likely cover anywhere from about 1 to 4 major markets clustered together, meaning that you'll be flying to or often driving to the same 1 to 4 cities over and over again. And this means you'll be going to the same restaurants, meeting with the same brokers, and if you do this long enough, touring the same deals as they come on and off the market over the years. Asset management roles are a very similar story, and you'll spend a lot of your time traveling to properties you've visited dozens, if not hundreds of times to meet with the same property management team and eat at the same restaurants you always do when you visit. It's also important to note that not every real estate investment is made at the city center of a major metro like New York or San Francisco, and a lot of your travel will probably take you to much more mundane city outskirts or suburbs in areas that might not have been your first choice as travel destinations. And as you get older and start to build a family, being away from home several nights per week can also get pretty tough, so that's also something to consider if you're considering a role with lots of travel involved. And speaking of being away from home, con number 2 involves being away from home several nights per week as well, and that is networking expectations. Now again, many people actually consider this a pro, but it is worth mentioning here because it can take up a lot of your time. Local after-hour networking events and client dinners can become a very regular occurrence in CRE, especially for brokerage or capital raising roles. And again, fancy dinners and drinks can sound great up front, but when you're doing this 3 nights a week for several years, this can start to get pretty old pretty fast. If you don't really enjoy talking with people or enjoy social gatherings, real estate can still definitely be for you, but I would strongly encourage you to look for more of an analytical role in portfolio or asset management rather than a transactional role like brokerage or acquisitions. And speaking of fancy dinners, finally, the third con on this list is that in certain situations, real estate can feel a little bit like a dog and pony show. And what I mean by that is that there are parts of real estate that can feel a little bit flashy and over the top, especially in the brokerage space or capital raising space when companies are trying to win new business. Some events and even some individuals can leave you feeling like you just talked to a used car salesman for an hour and can leave a pretty bad taste in your mouth about the industry as a whole in general. And if you are the one on the side of the table where you're the one trying to win new business, many prospective clients will expect a ride in a fancy car, to have dinner at a fancy restaurant, followed by fancy drinks at a fancy bar. Now, this definitely isn't always the case, especially when you start to move to secondary or tertiary markets and start dealing with smaller, more entrepreneurial firms. But if you find yourself in a New York, LA, or Chicago type market working for a major private equity or brokerage firm, this can become a pretty accurate depiction of things you'll do on a weekly basis. Now again, obviously all pros on this list are not pros for everyone, and all cons on this list are not cons for everyone either, but these are 6 of the most common things I've seen in my commercial real estate career throughout the years, and I hope they help you get a better idea of what you might be stepping into if you're trying to break into commercial real estate today. And if you've watched this video up to this point and you know real estate is where you want to be, make sure to check out Break Into CRE Academy through the link in the description below, where you can learn everything you need to know to land a job at one of these top tier real estate investment or brokerage firms and start your career in the commercial real estate industry. Now, if you like this video and want to see more content like this, let me know by hitting the like button, and make sure to leave a comment below letting me know some of the biggest pros and cons you see of being in the real estate space. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.